When you're starting photography or filmmaking, it is so easy to be influenced by friends. Watching YouTube videos will make you come across a lot of options of lenses, camera gear of any sort, lighting equipment, cameras themselves, a lot of things. You are going to think that you need all of them before you can be able to produce something that's worth looking at, something that's going to make you have a lot of engagement on your social media platform, something that's going to help you promote yourself. But trust me, that's not very true. It's very far from the truth. And by now, I'm sure you know, looking at the title of this video, are kit lenses that good? Let's get right into it. You might ask yourself a question, or you can throw this question to anybody else. What is a kit lens? And what does it talk about, or what's so much about it that people think it's not any good? That's actually a misconception. Let me just address that first of all before I get right into it. So let's define what a kit lens is. A kit lens, having the word kit and lens put together to inform this lens, is any lens that come in the package in addition to a camera body. So simply put, if you purchase, let's say, a Canon EOS 6D Mark II and it comes with a 24 to 105 f4 lens, that's a kit lens. Basically, if you're an entry-level photographer, you're definitely going to come across smaller end or lower end camera gear like the 600Ds, the 60Ds, and majorly they come with 18 to 55 mm, 3.5 to 5.6, and that's basically mostly what you get in the kit. And so that's mostly the lens that people refer to as the kit lens that I've come across, through my journey in photography. But let me tell you this, it is always important to consider gear, of course, but if you forget about yourself, improving yourself as the photographer, as the person behind the gear here is nothing, because you are the one controlling it and you understand the limits that your gear has, the lens for that matter. And if you're an entry-level photographer, I always advise, I have countless videos here on my YouTube channel that talks about why you should better yourself or improve yourself in your craft much more than looking so much into gear. Gear is good. If you're not even careful, you might get so much influence that you're going to get what they call the gear acquisition syndrome. It's like you're going to have so much love for gear that you're going to spend all that money, and later on in the future, when you bring your mind to it, or you bring yourself into realizing that you didn't need all those gear, you're going to find a dump of equipment that probably may be obsolete or probably wouldn't have any use in your stack or in your stock of equipment. So you have to be very wise when you're purchasing gear. So how do you determine if my kit lens is good, or if a lens for that matter is good? Is by, first of all, I've spoken about it, better yourself, understand the triangle of exposure, understand what the lens actually talks about. Lenses have writings on them, and it has a lot of information about it. You don't have to stick it on your camera or your camera body before you know what it can do. So understand the lenses and know if your lens is going to be able to pull off that job that you're doing. So if you're a beginner, or you're an entry-level photographer or a filmmaker, and you are only exposed to, or you have access to just a kit lens, let's say an 18 to 55 mm, the shortcoming of this particular lens is that it can't open as wide as you probably may want, because in low light situations it's going to be very difficult to amass a little light without touching your ISO. And you know that if you touch your ISO too much to the extreme, beyond, let's say, ISO 400, 500, 600 upwards, you're going to be introducing a lot of noise, which is going to depreciate the quality of the content that you're filming. So you have to understand that getting this lens or a kit lens, having access to just a kit lens, there are shortcomings. So you're going to rather have to invest into lighting, or invest into the knowledge about lighting and what to purchase for yourself. If you are in a low light situation, let's say shooting weddings, and all the lights available are, let's say, street lights, or let's say some bit of lights that are not so much with its outputs, you're going to run into a very deep trouble if you don't understand lighting and how much you can, have the possibilities to be. If you don't bring with you a light source of any sort, you're going to run at a loss. You're going to find a lot of problems with your footages that you film and also your pictures if the kit lens or the 18 to 55mm is what you're exposed to. So understanding the shortcomings or the limits of the lens is very important, and it's going to help you and inform you about what you are supposed to look forward to. So if you know about your lens, first of all, it's very good. You understand what the writings are, 18 to 55, which means you have a variable of focal length. That put aside, you have to also consider the aperture, which is on this same 18 to 55mm, 3.5 to 5.6, which means that zoomed all the way out, making it very wide, you can have the lens open to its widest aperture at 3.5, and zoomed all the way in to 55, you are limited to 5.6. But it's actually variables that are within this range. So you have to understand that and know that these are the limits to this lens, and how are you going to battle them out. I've spoken about lighting, understanding lighting, and bringing with you at least a light or two to help battle out this limit. And also you can equally avoid shooting during the night, shoot mostly during the day. And if you're looking at blurring the background, of course this is going to also be a problem. But there's this relationship of the subject to the lens to the background. If there's more distance away from the subject and you're as close as possible, shooting at even f5.6, you can get a reasonable amount of blurriness in there in the shot. So that's also something that you can consider with composition and positioning of yourself or the camera to the subject and to the background. So let's fast forward to why I think a kit lens is any good. It is actually good. Of course, depending on you, the user, you have to understand what it is and how you can use it. So I had a lens, a 16 to 35mm lens, which was so good. Trust me, the widest aperture I could go to was f2.8. I'm saying was because I don't have it anymore because it's broken. Unfortunately, I went to shoot a music video, and at the end, packing my stuff into my bag, it fell from my hand and hit the ground and it broke. And so ever since, I fixed it once, but it broke again. So it's still with the repairer, and I actually don't have any plans of going to pick it back up because I've used it for a lot of things, and it's actually beat up. It was actually beat up before I purchased it. I purchased it from a friend who had used it for a lot of different occasions, and so it was kind of old but not too old. I think the only issues I had was with the front element, was just a few scratches which couldn't be actually noticed when you capture images or videos. So it still worked until it got broken. All right, so I was left with only my 50mm 1.8 STM lens from Canon and my kit lens, which came with my Lumix GH5, which is my I actually have it here with me, 14 to 42mm f3.5 to 5.6. Okay, so you notice that this is also another range similar to the 18 to 55 that I spoke about before. And the Lumix Vario, Lumix G Vario, which is the name of this lens, is what I've been using for mostly music videos that I've shot in the past 4 months, 6 months. Yes, because I lost my 16 to 35mm 2.8. It got broken, it got destroyed, so I had to resort to the widest I had in my stock of lenses. I have additionally to it an 85mm 1.4, which is not mostly sitting on my video camera, and I had to use this, and it drew my attention to a lot of things that I was lacking, because I felt like I was so much spoiled that if I had run into an issue and I hadn't used this lens to its maximum usage, I wouldn't have been able to pick this up and use it seamlessly. Even though I was using it interchangeably, I think this range is double up on my GH5 because on the Micro Four Thirds, if you have a focal length of 14 times 2, you're gonna get 28 as the actual focal length that you'll be shooting on at the widest, which is 14 over here. So it also gave me some shortcomings. So I was always resorting to my 16 to 35 mm, which again, sadly, is broken. So I had to use this, and the limit of the widest aperture and the variable aperture that it goes when you zoom all the way out and all the way in taught me a whole lot of lessons. Now I had to invest in lighting and understand lighting so much that I was always mostly using my lights without modifiers, because softboxes are going to cut down the intensity of the light, soften the light, and you wouldn't get as much output to have this lens amass the amount of light that you need for your footages. So I had to look at using harsh light, and controlling harsh light was also a squabble. And all these made me enter into a whole new universe of trying to learn and adapt new methods addressing every project that I had. So it's a good thing to resort to kit lenses and still asking the question, is it any good? It is. It may not be good for certain purposes or certain gigs or certain projects. It depends on you and what you have access to. You can rent lenses if you want a particular lens that you don't have in your stock, but just give yourself an assignment. Use lenses that are not as good as on a normal day you would use, with a lot of shortcomings, can't open so wide, and try and learn a lot of things on your own, because you don't know that day that's gonna come where you're not gonna have access to the lens that you always love to use, which makes things much easier for you, and you're gonna be left with only a kit lens that has a lot of limits. So you have to be very careful and try to adapt new methods and challenging situations. And I believe that you're going to come out understanding lighting and composition and a lot of things that has to do with photography and filmmaking, so much more. So again, I asked you this question. Listening all the way through in this video, if I ask you this question, is a kit lens any good? I'm pretty sure that you agree with me that it is, as long as you, the photographer or the filmmaker, understand its limits and how best you can use it to its fullest possibilities, and if you can push it beyond its limits again. All right, so thank you very much for sitting through to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it and if you learned something, please share it across all social media platforms for your friends to also experience this. And also like this video, comment, engage with my content so that YouTube will propagate my videos, and it's going to help me, it's going to motivate me to put out quality videos like you always love, that you always see on my YouTube channel. And turn on the post notification button so that you'll be the first to be notified the next time I upload a video over here on my YouTube channel. Until the next video, have a wonderful day. See ya.